Greetings, friends, and welcome to the Looneybin. Dr. Sam I.B. DeGangi with the awesome privilege of interviewing Daniel Cleland from Savage Existence. Welcome to the Looneybin.
What's up, Sam? Thanks for having me, brother.
Wonderful to have you. For those of you that don't know, this is the most patient man in existence. A storm ripped through Ohio and pretty much tried to biblically wipe us out. We had no electricity forever, and this poor man was waiting to do the interview. That's why he's getting the entire hour tonight. So, friends, crank your radio very, very loud. I listened to Animals, and one of the things that stood out to me right away, and I took this interview, I was excited about it because I wasn't super familiar with the band beforehand. And that makes researching these interviews a lot more fun. I noticed right away in Animals, it's really heavy, but the lyrics do something interesting. You can understand them. Was that something that you set out to do with the band? Wasn't to just, see how low you could growl, but to actually have diction and the ability to hear the song?
Yeah, I think that's very important in any band.
Amen.
Even some really heavy bands like Cannibal Corpse, you can still hear a lot of the lyrics, or Suffocation in some cases. Lamb of God, you can understand many of the lyrics, but yeah, I just think Anton's a really good vocalist, and he's just done it enough so that he knows how to record something that is intelligible.
I also love the wicked drum part that says in Animals, friends. Make sure that you pay attention to that when that plays tonight. Leap of Faith, the new single, has some interesting guitar tones. They have higher qualities, but they're still very deep, very ominous. For the tech heads listening, how was that achieved?
Well, there's a lot of harmonics done. We recorded everything through Kemper's in the studio, and Andres performed that whole song on lead and rhythm guitars as well as bass in the studio. When we recorded the album, I wrote 6 of the songs and Anton wrote 3 of the songs. So in the studio, I'm talking about the new album right now, the self-titled album, which is coming out in 11 days. So I wrote 6 of the songs. Anton wrote 3 of the songs, and for the songs that Anton wrote, he taught Andres how to play those. So and Andres created his own leads for that, and so the performance in the studio was with Andres's equipment. He's using a 7-string Schecter, which has really good harmonics, and also he's got the expression pedal from Kemper, so he can set the whammy or the wah or anything like that using that expression pedal, and just use the same pedal with it. And yeah, I think they just constantly try to have really fat rhythms. So the way Logan Mater, our producer, records the rhythms is he lays down 2 rhythms for right and left. So there's actually 4 rhythm tracks that we have to record, rhythm guitar. And then he'll do leads on top of that. So, and then there might even be 2 leads on top of that to get that really full kind of, octave. Like there might be 2 or 3 octaves in one note, right? So
Gotcha.
yeah.
That actually feeds into a later question, but I want to go with it because take us into the writing process. Some bands have songs first, riffs first, lyrics first, and I know there's always exceptions, but take us into how Savage Existence does it.
Yeah, in my particular case, it usually involves me in a closed room somewhere. Just I'll if I'm feeling in the creative mood, I'll go grab a couple drinks and go into the rehearsal studio and light up the guitar and just start practicing and playing through scales, and then just, you know, kind of screwing around, getting a feel for the beat, come up with some riffs. And I have this beautiful little application on my cell phone called BandLab. And so when I'm doing riffs, I can, if I come up with anything, I'll just record it on my cell phone. And if it's you know, if there's a sequence that I come up with, then I'll put a click track to it and just lay it down. Sometimes I come up with a whole song in, like, you know, a few hours. That gets tweaked later.
That's a great feeling too, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's really fun. You know, we've got a whole bunch of stuff also laid down for our third album, which we'll be putting together later this year. But yeah, even with that application, I can do layers. I can put a couple guitars. I can put bass all to a click track just with my cell phone. So that's usually how I do it personally.
What's the name of that app again?
BandLab.
BandLab.
Yeah, so it's pretty convenient. So I've got a pair of like Bose Bluetooth headphones. So what you do is you find your click track, and when you hit record, the click plays in your ears, but the mic's recording from the cell phone. So you just, you know, you play through the amp, and then that's not a very advanced way of doing it. It's just how I've been doing it. Now I built this rehearsal studio in my house in Costa Rica, and we've got all this top end equipment that's going to, like, once we figure out how to use it all, it's going to allow us to just, you know, basically flip a switch, and then you're recording right into, you know, we've got a big mixer and an amp and an iMac with all the software on it, with Reaper on it, to be able to actually set up the songs on the iMac and then play with direct input to the mixer from the Kemper, and and record that way, which will sound a lot better. And, you know, we'll be able to, you know, do better demos and record everything in a more, you know, professional sounding way than just a cell phone for pre-production purposes. So yeah, there's that. And then for Anton, I don't know exactly how he gets into it, but he's pretty much like a let's sit down and write a song kind of guy. And he'll kind of start off with some criteria. It's like, okay, I want to get this feeling, I want to get this vibe, so I'm gonna try to get a riff that brings that feeling or that vibe. You know, he'll have an idea because he's a much more well-rounded musician than I am. He can play classical piano, he can sing opera, he can sing metal, he can, you know, growl death metal. He's been in the music game for like 20 years. So so yeah, he can play guitar too, or bass or whatever. And multiple different genres of music. So, you know, if we're trying to create a certain vibe with Savage Existence, which is kind of more like party metal in a certain way, heavy, but like something, I mean, I'm talking about the new stuff that we're doing. The old stuff was really reminiscent of kind of our old school roots from the 90s groove metal, and a lot of those songs were old that I wrote, you know, up to 20 years ago.
You can hear the Pantera like influence in a lot of them, but I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean, it had that sort of stomp, that drive, that sort very staccato sort of feel to a lot of it.
Yeah, and that's you know, just basically because Jesse, the drummer, and myself, you know, we grew up in a small town in like rural Canada. In the, you know, we're both born in 81, so we were in high school for the last half of the 90s, right? And during that time where we lived, all of, you know, it kind of shifted from Nirvana and the grunge movement to metal, right? And or hip hop, for anyone who went the hip hop direction. Bunch of, you know, white kids in rural Canada wearing like, you know, hip hop clothes and all that kind of stuff, and, you know, backwards hats, and like doing raps and stuff like that. But yeah, me and my crew, we went the metal way, and that was just, you know, your typical backbone of, you know, Machine Head, Pantera, Sepultura, Cannibal Corpse, Korn, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So so that was, you know, that was really how I learned how to play guitar, was by learning the music of those bands. So obviously that just shaped the way I play and the way I wrote music. So of course, when that music comes out, it sounds influenced by those bands, you know, along with my own. There might even be a bit of Nirvana influence in some of our songs, because, you know, I wrote a lot of those songs before when
Very melodious riffs when you get into that too. A lot of his stuff, even though it wasn't complicated, it could stay in your head better than, you know, anything that people who tend to get paid like Desmond Child for something like that. I would argue that Nirvana had a better ability to lock into a melody that just stayed in your head, even if it was the rhythm section.
Yeah, I mean, they were certainly an anomaly, right? And such a huge band that influenced so many people and impacted so many people's lives. And with such a tragic end as well. But
yeah,
yeah, going forward, you know, it's kind of weird. It's like, we can say we're going to do this and say we're going to do that, but then sitting down to write riffs, it's like a certain sound just comes out no matter what, you know, and that's usually, it's got beat. I'm writing a lot of new songs, kind of, I'm naturally finding, you know, kind of from the 150 to 165 tempo. So that's a pretty strong kind of, you know, beat. And not super fast, but it's, you know, still pretty groovy, but still pretty upbeat. And yeah, I think we're kind of going, we kind of want to just be a little more palatable for a wider audience. And so we're, you know, trying to do less like really deep growling, like less death metal vocals in the new stuff, and more I don't know even know what you'd call it. Anton's got about 3 different yelling
I was
sounds.
going to mention Savage Medicine. I have written here that it has quite a mystical sounding intro, followed by a really tricky guitar part. And I noticed that there's a lot of different vocal styles that are in music styles, even within that song. That song jumped out at me, Savage Medicine.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wrote most of that just on acoustic guitar.
If I'm not
Like,
mistaken, that plays with the different vocal styles too a lot, right?
um,
Or am I thinking of Animals? I think it's Savage Medicine. I could be
yeah, yeah,
wrong.
yeah. You know, you're right. Like that. That's got a lot of really deep growling in it, and kind of rough talking, raspy talking, I guess you can say, and then also just yelling.
Who did the Middle Eastern Arabic vocals? Was that a production edition, or did you guys use somebody for it's like chanting in it at the
Yeah. So, so actually, I run an ayahuasca center in Costa Rica and Peru. So, you know, we actually we have several locations, and so we work with indigenous shamans from the Amazon jungle. And yeah, I don't know if you ever heard of ayahuasca, perhaps not, but it's a psychedelic plant medicine from the Amazon jungle. It's like a brew that's composed of smashing up a vine called Banisteriopsis caapi, and then boiling that for hours and hours and hours over a fire with a leaf called Psychotria viridis. And that produces like a thick concentrated tea that contains orally active dimethyltryptamine, or DMT. And so, you know, we've got this business model where we have these shamans who have these traditions with this plant medicine and shamanism and mysticism and spirituality. It's like a sacrament for them. And they sing in their native language, which is Shipibo, from Peru, right? And So they conduct these ceremonies at our place in this round ceremonial structure. And, we have Westerners who come from around the developed world and sit in these ceremonies with these indigenous shamans, and they drink this psychedelic medicine, and these shamans take them on a visual and audible journey throughout the ceremony, which can last like 4 or 5 hours. And so we had a couple of those shamans come over to my house in Costa Rica, and Logan Mader was here, and he set up a mic and recorded them singing their Icaros, which are what they call their chants.
That is interesting. I'm very happy I asked that question now. I really am. It was definitely not a production effect.
It's at the beginning of Winds of Shit, too.
Aha. All right, 2 more questions, and I'm gonna let you get about your day. Your cover of Killing in the Name Of, sort of a metal update to a classic 90s song, as we were talking about. Tell us how that came to be.
Well, that's just an example of Anton and Andres sitting down in front of the computer and just crushing out a demo, spending an afternoon on doing their own take on a classic song.
It almost reminds me of what Ministry would have done to it. I liked it.
Yeah, we'll probably have to try to get that on the 3rd album, I guess, shouldn't we?
It's interesting. I don't know. I've heard that getting permission to do their music can be a nightmare, so it'll be interesting.
Okay. Well,
you guys, although I think when he hears it, because I did get to meet Morello once. I have really believed that when he hears it, you're gonna have the blessing all the way, because it really it jumped off the screen at me.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, my famous last question. You guys probably talk to a million of us annoying people all the time. What is a question that none of us have asked that you're amazed, or something that you'd like to just say to everyone?
Oh, I don't know. That's a hard question. I think I've been asked them all.
Well, that's not bad either, but I figured I would always give the option. I ended up with Max Cavalera telling me that he wanted to be a superhero, and he thought maybe invisibility. So you never know where that question's going to go.
Oh, I don't know about that.
All right, well, they end it with the doggy then. What's the doggy's name?
This is Millie. She's a Siberian Husky, and she's about 6 months old now. She's getting chubby. She's getting chubby.
Oh, yeah. All right, so where can they find your music? Where can everybody get a hold of you? Look at that beautiful face.
She's a little cutie pie. She's my little baby.
Gorgeous.
I have another one who's a big male. And they're going to have little puppies at some point when she's old enough.
That's great. Where can everybody get a hold of you? Get a hold of the band, hear the music, all of that good stuff for social media.
Sure. So, anybody who's going to be in Europe in the next month, we're doing a tour. We're touring with Ross the Boss, so kind of classic metal. Classic metal with a little bit of savage metal, going out to Germany, Netherlands, Denmark, and Belgium between April 28th and May 15th. We're doing a couple festivals out that way. Those dates and our music and our videos and news are all at savageexistence.com. And we are also on social media with the handle at Savage Existence Official, and YouTube at Savage Existence Band. We got some cool videos up there. We have a really good video coming out with the album on April 28th.
I'm telling you, friends, I was not super familiar with the band until I got this interview, and I went to where he just told you, went through the videos. Friends, you're going to want to listen to every one of them. You're really going to. And again, I would say you're going to want to listen to Savage Medicine twice. The same day. All right, before we leave, can you say you're listening to 102.5 FM Neopa Radio? You can say your name.
You're listening to 102.5 FM Neopa Radio.
All right, friends. Thank you so much. Make sure you guys hit the site. Be safe out there. Enjoy your tour.
Thank you, brother.